Apologize to her right now, Denise, or we're getting a divorce. My husband's voice cut clean through the noise of our backyard, louder than the cicadas, louder than the low hum of Lynyrd Skynyrd playing off Greg's old Bluetooth speaker. And just like that, 24 years of marriage stood there in the open like something cheap left out in the sun too long. I remember the way the ice shifted in my plastic cup, that small, hollow clink. I held on to that sound because it was easier than looking at her. Tessa. Standing barefoot on my patio stones like she belonged there, wearing a red dress I knew too well. Greg had bought it for me 5 years earlier for our 20th anniversary. I had worn it to dinner at Mitchell's Ocean Club. He said I looked like a woman who didn't age. Now she was wearing it and smiling. Not nervous, not embarrassed, smiling like she had already won something. Someone coughed behind me, one of Greg's subcontractors maybe, a neighbor shifting in one of those folding lawn chairs. Nobody said anything, nobody needed to. I looked at Greg. 53 years old. Gray just starting to take over his temples, still standing like he owned the room. Like he always did. Except now I could see it clearer than I ever had before. He wasn't strong. He was just used to me holding everything up behind him. "Did you hear me?" he said sharper this time. "Apologize." I felt something strange in my chest. Not anger, not even sadness. Clarity. Slow quiet settling in like dust. I set my cup down on the counter. The condensation left a ring on the granite I had picked out myself 12 years ago. "I did hear you," I said. My voice sounded steady. That surprised me. Tessa tilted her head just slightly, watching me like she was waiting for a show. Her hair was pulled back perfect, makeup still fresh in the August heat. She smelled like something expensive, something floral that didn't belong in a backyard with grilled burgers and lighter fluid. Greg took a step closer. "Then say it," he said. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder. That word almost made me laugh. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped just a little against the concrete. A few heads turned. I didn't look at them. I looked at him. And then just for a second I looked at her. That smirk. It wasn't even subtle. She thought she had me cornered, thought I would fold, apologize, keep the peace, like I always had. Like every other time, he pushed just a little too far and I stepped in to smooth it over. I reached down and picked up my keys from the counter. They felt heavier than usual in my hand. I walked past him close enough to catch the scent of his aftershave. The same one he'd worn for years. The one I used to buy him every Christmas. At the door I stopped. Turned back. Met his eyes. And I said very clearly, "Then enjoy her without me." 5 words. That was it. No yelling, no tears. Just the truth finally said out loud. For a second, nobody moved. It was like the whole backyard held its breath. Greg blinked. Once, like he didn't quite understand what he'd just heard. What he said? I didn't answer. I opened the door, stepped inside, grabbed my purse from the hook by the kitchen and walked right back out the front. Past the driveway, past his truck, past the neighbor's mailbox with the peeling blue paint. I got in my car, shut the door, and just sat there. My hands were shaking. Not violently. Just enough that I noticed when I tried to put the key in the ignition and missed the first time. I didn't cry. That surprised me too. Instead, I just sat there listening to my own breathing, slow, uneven, real. After a minute, I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway. I didn't look back. The drive to Paula's place in Dublin took about 20 minutes. I had made that drive so many times over the years I could have done it blindfolded. Past the same gas station on Cleveland Avenue, the same church sign that changed its message every week, the same row of maple trees that always dropped leaves too early. That night everything looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. I parked outside her condo and sat for another minute before getting out. My legs felt a little unsteady when I stood up like I had just gotten off a long flight. Paula opened the door before I even knocked. She took one look at my face and stepped aside. "Come in," she said softly. I walked in, set my purse down on her kitchen counter and leaned back against it like I needed something solid behind me. She didn't ask questions right away. That was Paula. 40 years of friendship teaches you when to talk and when to wait. She poured me a glass of water, not wine, not coffee, just water. I took it, hand still a little shaky, and drank half of it in one go. Then I said it. I think I just walked out of my whole life. My voice cracked on the last word, just a little. Paula leaned her hip against the counter, arms crossed, watching me carefully. Then she shook her head. No, she said. I looked up at her. She softened her voice just a touch. Honey, you didn't lose everything. She let that sit for a second. Then added, you just put something heavy down. I stared at her. And for the first time that night I felt it. Not relief. Not yet. But something close to it. Like I had been holding my breath for years without realizing it, and had finally let a little air out. I didn't sleep much that night. Paula made up the guest bed with those soft flannel sheets she always kept on no matter the season. Said they felt like a hug. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet. No hum of Greg's late-night TV. No phone buzzing on the nightstand with last-minute quick favors for the business. No mental checklist running through tomorrow's problems before I even opened my eyes. Just quiet. Around 3 a.m, I finally rolled onto my side and pulled the blanket up closer. My chest ached. Not from what I had lost. From how long it had taken me to see it. The next morning the light came in through Paula's kitchen window the same way it always did. Soft, warm, landing right across the table where we had sat 100 times before. She had coffee ready, strong, the way I liked it. I sat down, wrapped my hands around the mug, and just breathed in the smell. Did he call? She asked. I shook my head. Not yet. We both knew he would. Paula took a sip of her coffee and studied me over the rim of her mug. You going back today? She asked. I stared down at the table. At a small scratch in the wood I had never noticed before. No, I said. And this time there was no hesitation. Paula nodded like she had expected that answer. Good, she said. We sat there in silence for a minute. Then I said more to myself than to her. I don't think I can go back to that. And for the first time since the night before, I knew I meant it. The next morning the quiet didn't feel as sharp. It still sat there unfamiliar, but it wasn't cutting anymore. Paula moved around her kitchen like she always did, slow, steady, like nothing in the world could rush her. The coffee pot clicked off. The fridge opened and closed. Somewhere outside, a lawnmower started up that low, familiar buzz of a Saturday morning in Ohio. I sat at her table with my hands wrapped around a mug I hadn't taken a sip from in a while. My phone was face down beside me. I hadn't touched it. Not yet. You don't have to look right away, Paula said without turning around. I know, but I reached for it anyway. Just to see. The screen lit up and there it was. 7 missed calls. 3 voicemails. And a string of texts from Greg. The first one from last night. Greg, are you serious right now? Then, Greg, Denise, don't do this in front of people. Come back and we'll talk. A little later. Greg, you embarrassed me. I let out a small breath through my nose at that one. Not a laugh, just something close. Then the tone shifted. Greg, where are you? Greg, answer your phone. Greg, we need to talk about this like adults. And finally sent just before midnight. Greg, this isn't how you handle things. I stared at that last one for a long second. This isn't how you handle things. 24 years. Of handling things. Quietly, efficiently, without fuss. And now suddenly I was doing it wrong. Paula set a plate down in front of me. Toast, scrambled eggs. She always cooked when she didn't know what else to do. You gonna answer him? She asked. I turned the phone back over. Not yet. She nodded once. Good. We ate in silence for a bit. Not awkward, just steady. After a few minutes, she said, What about the business? That word landed heavier than the rest. The business. Harlow Home Solutions. Greg's company. That's what he always called it. But I knew what it really was. Or at least what it had been. I don't know, I said honestly. And that was new too. I usually knew. I was the one people called when something went wrong, when a client was upset, when a check didn't go through, when a subcontractor didn't show up. I was the one who knew where everything was, who to call, what to say. I took a bite of toast, barely tasted it. I think I need to talk to someone first, I said. Paula didn't ask who. She already knew. By noon, I was sitting across from Martin Keene in a small office just off High Street. He was exactly what you'd expect a man his age to be, early 60s, gray hair, glasses that sat low on his nose, voice calm in a way that made you feel like nothing could really rattle him. Paula had recommended him years ago. I had never thought I'd need him. Until now. He listened while I talked. Didn't interrupt, didn't rush me. Just let me lay it out. The barbecue, the ultimatum, the affair. The dress. That detail slipped out before I could stop it. He didn't react to it, but I saw something shift in his eyes. Not judgment. Just understanding. When I finished, he folded his hands on the desk. "All right," he said, "let's take this one step at a time." I nodded. He leaned back slightly. "First, have you done anything to his accounts, the business shared assets? Number. Have you moved money, changed passwords, shut anything down? Number. Good." He gave a small nod. "That's good." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "I don't want to ruin him," I said. Martin's expression didn't change. "You don't have to," he said simply. He paused. Sometimes the most effective thing a person can do is stop fixing what isn't theirs to fix. That landed. I looked down at my hands. "I've been doing that for a long time," I said. "I figured," he replied. There was no judgment in it, just fact. He reached for a notepad. "Tell me about your role in the business," he said. And for a second I almost laughed. "My role," I said. I thought about it. And then instead of listing everything, one memory came up. "Christmas Eve 2015, I said. He looked up. Greg had a client threatening to walk. Big contract, $45,000. Something was wrong with the invoices. Numbers didn't match. I swallowed. He was at a party, said he'd deal with it after the holiday. I let out a small breath. I stayed up until 3 a.m. fixing it, cross-checking everything, calling the supplier, rebuilding the invoice line by line. Martin didn't say anything. Next morning I went on, he woke up, glanced at it and said, I paused. "Thanks for helping out." I gave a small shrug. "Helping out?" Martin wrote something down. Then he looked back at me. "And how often would you say that happened?" he asked. I let out a short breath. Different versions of it all the time. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Here's the thing, Denise. From what you're describing, you've been functioning as the operational backbone of that company." I didn't respond. Because I knew he was right. He tapped his pen lightly on the desk. "You don't need to sabotage anything. You don't need to make a scene." I looked up at him. "Then what do I do?" He held my gaze. "You stop." I frowned slightly. Stop. Stop covering for him. Stop stepping in. Stop answering the calls that were never officially yours to begin with. He leaned forward just a bit. "You step back, cleanly, legally, and you let the structure stand on its own." There was a quiet in the room after that. Not uncomfortable. Just heavy with meaning. "What happens then?" I asked. Martin's expression stayed neutral. "That depends on how stable the structure actually is." Later that afternoon I sat in Sharon Bell's office. 58, sharp eyes, no nonsense. She had worked with our books a few times over the years, mostly when Greg got in over his head during tax season. She flipped through a set of documents in front of her glasses perched on the edge of her nose. "You've been doing a lot more than helping out," she said without looking up. I let out a quiet breath. "I know." She tapped a page. "Line of credit renewals coming up Monday," she said. "You prepared most of this." "Yes." She nodded. "Figures." She finally looked at me. "If you step away now, he's going to feel it fast." I swallowed. "How fast?" She gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. "Sooner than he thinks." She turned another page. "And Denise, there's something else." My chest tightened just slightly. "What?" She tapped the paper again. "He's taken on a new development deal recently, big one, connected to a real estate agent." I didn't need her to say the name. "Tessa," I said. Sharon gave a small nod. "The thing is, the bank approved the initial review based on historical records." She met my eyes. "Records you organized." The room felt a little smaller. "If you're not there to maintain that consistency," she said carefully, "they're going to start asking questions." I sat back in the chair. And for the first time I saw it clearly. Not just the affair. Not just the humiliation. The assumption. That I would keep everything running. No matter what. No matter how he treated me. No matter who he brought into my home wearing my dress. I let out a slow breath. This isn't just about me leaving him, I said quietly. Sharon shook her head. No, she said. It's about what happens when you stop holding things together for someone who thinks they're doing it themselves. That evening back at Paula's, I sat on the edge of the guest bed with my phone in my hand. It buzzed again. Another message from Greg. Greg, we need to talk about Monday. The bank called. I stared at it. Then another one came in. Greg, Denise, don't start something you can't finish. I read that one twice. Then I set the phone down on the nightstand. And I didn't answer. For the first time in a very long time, I didn't fix it. Sunday morning I drove back to the house. Not because I had changed my mind. Because I needed to be clear. The street looked the same as always. Quiet, lawns trimmed, flags hanging from front porches, a couple walking their dog past the mailbox. Normal. That word almost made me angry. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a second, engine still running. Greg's truck was gone. That didn't surprise me. He had probably gone out early trying to get ahead of whatever was already starting to slip. I turned off the car and stepped out. The front door felt heavier when I pushed it open. Inside the house smelled faintly like grilled meat and stale beer. The aftermath of last night still sitting in the air. A paper plate on the counter. A half-empty bowl of chips. A red napkin crumpled near the sink. I stood there for a moment, just looking. This had been my space. Every detail in it had my hands on it somewhere. The cabinets I picked, the rug I argued for, the small crack in the tile near the fridge I had meant to fix but never got around to. And now it felt like I was already a guest. I walked upstairs without turning on any lights. The bedroom door was half open, the bed unmade. Greg's side rumpled mine untouched from the night before. I didn't linger. I went straight to the closet. I didn't take everything. That was important. Just what was mine. A suitcase from the top shelf, my clothes, a few pairs of shoes, my jewelry box, the small metal tin where I kept documents, passport, birth certificate, insurance papers. On the dresser, my phone charger. I coiled it neatly and dropped it in the bag. I moved through the room methodically, no rushing, no second guessing. This wasn't anger. This was a decision. Downstairs, I grabbed my laptop from the desk in the corner, the one I had used for years to handle invoices, payroll notes, vendor emails. Next to it sat a small external hard drive. I hesitated for half a second. Then I picked it up too. Not to take anything that wasn't mine. Just to make sure I had what I needed. I left everything else exactly where it was. When I walked back out the front door, I didn't look around again. I just closed it behind me. Back at Paula's, I sat at the small desk in her spare room and opened my laptop. For a long minute, I just stared at the screen. This was the part that mattered. Not what I had said. Not how I had left. This. What I did next. I opened my email. Started with a blank message. To vendors first. I kept it simple. Professional. Clear. Effective immediately, I will no longer be handling communications or administrative support for Harlow Home Solutions. Please direct all future inquiries to Greg Harlow. No emotion. No explanation. Just the truth. I sent a few of those. Then payroll. Then a short message to the outside service we used for employee checks. Same tone. Same clarity. Then I closed the laptop. My heart was beating a little faster now. Not panic. Just awareness. I picked up my phone. 3 new messages. All from Greg. I opened the first. Greg, Denise, where are the vendor confirmations for Monday? Second. Greg, I can't get into the payroll system. It's asking for a code. Third. Greg, call me, now. I stared at the screen. The code. Of course. 2-factor authentication. It went to my phone. Because I was the one who had set it up years ago. Because I was the one who made sure things were secure. Because I was the one who thought ahead. I set the phone down. Didn't answer. An hour later it rang. Not a text this time. A call. Greg. I watched it vibrate across the table. Once. Twice. 3 times. It stopped. Then started again. I picked it up on the 4th ring. Not because I felt like I owed him. Because I wanted to hear his voice. Denise, he said immediately. No, hello, what are you doing? His tone wasn't angry. Not yet. Confused. I'm stepping back, I said. There was a pause. What does that mean, he asked. It means I'm not handling your business anymore, I said. Calm, even. That's not how this works, he snapped. I almost smiled at that. That's exactly how it works, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Payroll's stuck, he said finally. The system's asking for a code. I didn't answer right away. He filled the silence. Denise, people are going to be asking questions tomorrow. I could picture it. Mary at the office, 62 years old, been with us 15 years, always early, always organized, the one who double-checked everything before it went out. Mary looking at her screen Monday morning waiting for something that didn't come. My chest tightened. I know, I said quietly. Then fix it, he said. There it was. Not please. Not can you help. Just fix it. Like always. I closed my eyes for a second. Saw Mary. Saw the office. Saw all the small ordinary things that ran because I made sure they did. I can't, I said. Yes, you can, he shot back. You've done it 100 times. I opened my eyes. No, I said, I'm not doing it anymore. The line went quiet. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder. You're being vindictive, he said. That word hung there. Vindictive. I let out a slow breath. No, I said, I'm being done. He didn't like that. I could hear it. Denise, don't start something you can't finish, he said. I thought about that. Then I said I already did. And I hung up. The rest of Sunday moved slowly. Too slowly. That's the thing about not fixing things. Time stretches. You notice every minute, every thought, every second you might have filled before with action. Paula kept me busy, grocery run, folding laundry, small things. But my mind kept drifting back. To the office, to the people, to what Monday would look like. That night I sat on the couch with my phone in my hand. Another message came in. Greg, Denise, this is getting out of hand. I didn't respond. A few minutes later, Greg, the supplier's asking for confirmation. I don't know what they're talking about. I stared at the message. Then I set the phone down. Face down. Again. Around 9 my phone rang. This time it wasn't Greg. It was Evan. I answered on the first ring. Hey, sweetheart, I said. Mom, he said, and I could hear something in his voice I hadn't heard in a while. Not panic. But not calm either. You okay, I asked. There was a pause. I heard from Dad, he said, he's kind of losing it. I closed my eyes for a second. Yeah, I said softly, I figured. Another pause. Then he said quieter. I know about her. My chest tightened. How long, I asked. Long enough, he said. That hurt more than I expected. Not that he knew. That he hadn't felt like he could tell me. I didn't say anything because, he trailed off. Because you didn't want to make it worse, I finished for him. Yeah. We sat in that for a second. Then he said he's yelling at someone about money, something about the bank. I don't think he really knows what he's doing. I let out a small breath. I know, I said. Another pause. Then softer. I'm with you, Mom. That landed. Right in the center of my chest. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. Phone in my lap. House quiet around me. I thought about everything. The years. The small moments. The things I had fixed without being asked. The things I had swallowed to keep the peace. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to go back and do it again. Monday morning came. And with it, the beginning of what I had finally stopped holding together. Monday morning started like any other. That was the strange part. The sun came up the same way. The air was already warm by 8. Somewhere down the street, a neighbor slammed a car door and started their day like nothing in the world had shifted. But it had. I could feel it. Even sitting at Paula's kitchen table, coffee in my hands, I could feel something unraveling somewhere else. I didn't have to see it to know. My phone buzzed before I even took my first sip. I glanced at the screen. Greg? Of course. I let it ring twice. 3 times. Then I flipped it over. Paula watched me from across the table. You gonna answer that, she asked. Number. She nodded like she already knew. Good. By mid-morning, the texts started stacking up. I didn't open them right away. I let them sit there. Let them exist without me jumping in to manage them. That alone felt unnatural. For years, my reflex had been immediate. Solve it, smooth it, fix it before it got bigger. Now I just watched. Around 10, I picked up the phone and scrolled. Greg, the supplier's holding delivery. What did you tell them? A few minutes later. Greg, the bank called again. They're asking for documents I don't have. Then, Greg, Denise, this is getting ridiculous. I read them. Set the phone back down. Did nothing. Around noon it rang again. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later the notification popped up. I hesitated. Then I pressed play. Greg's voice came through louder than usual, tight, with something he wasn't quite controlling anymore. Denise, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but this isn't funny. The payroll service is saying there's an issue and Mary's already called me twice. People are asking where their checks are. Call me back. The message cut off with a sharp click. I stared at the phone. Mary. There it was again. That small human piece in the middle of everything. I pictured her sitting at her desk, her glasses sliding down her nose the way they always did, her little notebook open pen tapping the page when something didn't add up. Waiting. My chest tightened. I picked up the phone. For a second I almost dialed the number, almost called the payroll service myself, almost stepped right back into the place I had lived in for 20 years. Paula's hand landed gently on my wrist. Don't, she said. I looked up at her. They didn't do anything wrong, I said quietly. I know, she said. Her voice was soft but firm. But this isn't yours to carry anymore. I swallowed. It didn't feel that simple. But I nodded anyway. And I set the phone back down. By late afternoon, the tone of Greg's messages had changed. The edge was gone, replaced by something else. Greg, Denise, just tell me what I need to send the bank. Then, Greg, I don't have the files you're talking about. A few minutes later, Greg, where are the backups? I read that one twice. Then I set the phone down again. Tuesday morning it got worse. You could hear it in the silence. That sounds strange, I know. But there's a kind of quiet that feels normal. And then there's the kind that feels like something's about to break. Paula had the news on low in the background, some segment about local development projects, new builds, renovations, contracts being handed out. The kind of thing Greg used to get excited about. Used to talk about like he was building something bigger than himself. My phone buzzed again. I picked it up this time. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. Tessa, I think you're taking this too far. I stared at the screen. Then another message came in. Tessa, Greg's under a lot of pressure right now. You're making things worse. I let out a slow breath. There it was. Still the same. Still thinking I was the one creating the problem. I typed nothing. Didn't respond. Set the phone down. An hour later it rang again. Greg, I answered. This time his voice was different. Not sharp. Not demanding. Frayed. Denise, he said, and there was a strain there I had never heard before. The bank's asking about the line of credit. They're saying the documentation doesn't match. I didn't say anything. They want clarification, he went on. They're talking about freezing things until it's sorted. I closed my eyes. Not in panic. Just listening. I need you to tell me what you submitted, he said. There was a pause. Then quieter. Please. That word landed. But it didn't move me the way it used to. I'm not part of the business anymore, I said. Denise. I told you that, I said, still calm. He exhaled hard. You can't just walk away like this, he said. There are things tied to you. Your name is on. I've already spoken to my attorney, I said, cutting in gently. Silence. Then sharper, you went to a lawyer. Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. What did they tell you, he asked. That I don't have to fix what isn't mine to fix. He let out a short, disbelieving laugh. This is unbelievable, he said. After everything. After everything, I repeated quietly. And for a second, neither of us spoke. Then I said, I have to go. And I hung up. Wednesday morning came fast. Faster than the days before. Like everything had been building toward something and now it was here. Paula stood in the doorway of the guest room while I got dressed. You sure you want to go? She asked. I nodded. I'm not going for him, I said. I'm going for me. She studied me for a second. Then she smiled just a little. "That's new," she said. I almost smiled back. The Chamber of Commerce breakfast was held at a hotel just off Polaris Parkway. I had been to events like this before, years ago, back when Greg still liked introducing me as the one who keeps everything running. Back when it felt like a compliment. Now it just sounded like something he had relied on. The ballroom was already half full when I walked in. Round tables, white tablecloths, coffee stations set up along the side, the low hum of conversation. I spotted Greg almost immediately. He was near the front talking to a man in a gray suit, his posture straight smile in place, like nothing had changed. Like everything was under control. Tessa stood beside him. Perfect again. Hair done, dress fitted, phone in hand already angled slightly like she was choosing what parts of the morning were worth showing. I felt something settle in me. Not anger. Just distance. I walked in quietly, took a seat at a table near the middle. A few people glanced my way. Recognized me. One of them leaned over slightly. "Denise, right," she said. "You used to handle things for Harlow Home Solutions." "Used to?" I nodded. "I did." She smiled. "Well, you were always the one who knew what was going on," she said. "Greg's a lucky man." I didn't respond to that. I just took a sip of my coffee. It didn't take long. The cracks were already there. I saw it in the way Greg's smile tightened when someone asked a question. In the way he glanced at his phone more often than usual. In the way the man in the gray suit's expression shifted from polite interest to something else. Concern. "Where's Denise these days?" someone asked casually. Greg laughed. "She's taking a little time off," he said. "I've got everything handled." I almost admired how easily he said it. Almost. Then it happened. A man from one of the supply companies stepped closer. "Greg," he said, "we've got a delivery on hold. We haven't received confirmation." Greg nodded quickly. Yeah, I'm on that," he said. "What confirmation?" the man asked. Greg hesitated. "Just a second." But it was enough. I saw it. That tiny gap. The moment where he didn't know. "Denise," usually the man started. And then stopped. Because he saw me. Sitting there. Watching. Not interfering. A few minutes later it got worse. Greg opened his laptop at the table, fingers moving faster now. "I just need to pull up a file," he muttered. The screen blinked. He frowned. "Where is it?" he said under his breath. Then louder. "Where's that Excel file?" No one answered. He looked around, and his eyes landed on me. "Denise," he said like it was automatic, "do you have a copy of—" I met his gaze. And for the first time, I didn't step in. "I'm sure Tessa can help," I said calmly. "She's building your future right." The words weren't loud, but they carried. A couple of people at nearby tables went quiet. Tessa stiffened beside him. She started, then stopped. Because she didn't know. Not really. The room shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough. The kind of shift people feel before something becomes obvious. Greg's face changed. Not anger. Not yet. Something closer to realization. It didn't end there. Outside in the parking lot, the sun was already high, the heat rising off the pavement in soft waves. I had just reached my car when I heard my name. "Denise." I turned. Greg was walking toward me fast. Tessa just behind him. Up close, he looked different. Less controlled. Less certain. Just wait a second," he said, catching his breath slightly. I didn't move. "What is this?" he asked. "What are you doing?" I held his gaze. "I told you," I said. I stepped away. "This isn't stepping away," he said. This is sabotage." "No," I said quietly, "it's not." Tessa stepped forward. Her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was shaky. "I didn't know," she said. "I didn't know everything depended on you like that." I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, the smirk was gone. "I didn't make anything depend on me," I said. "I just stopped giving it for free." Greg ran a hand through his hair. "Denise just come back," he said. "For a week. Just help me get things straight." There it was. The ask. Finally. I shook my head. Number. He stared at me. Like he still thought I might change my mind. "I didn't ruin your life," I said. My voice was steady. I just stopped carrying it. For a second, no one spoke. Then I turned, opened my car door, and got in. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw them in the rearview mirror, standing there, together. But not like they had been before. 2 months later, I was standing in a kitchen that wasn't mine. Not the old one. This one was smaller, narrow counters, a single window over the sink that looked out onto a row of identical townhouses in Worthington, beige siding, trimmed hedges, nothing fancy. But it was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels like something's missing. The kind that feels like something's finally settled. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, letting the sunlight hit the edge of the mug. It was early, just after 7. The air still cool before the day warmed up. For the first time in years, I didn't have a list running in my head. No supplier to call. No invoice to fix. No problem waiting for me before I even finished my first sip. Just morning. I took a breath and let it out slowly. The job at the dental office had come together quicker than I expected. Columbus Dental Care. Same building I had worked in when I was 21. The carpet had been replaced, the front desk updated, but the layout was the same. Dr. Patel recognized me right away. "Denise," he said, stepping out from one of the exam rooms. "Denise Carter." I hadn't heard that name in a long time. I smiled. "Still me," I said. He shook his head, smiling back. "Well, I'll be," he said. "What brings you back here?" I could have given him a long answer. Explained everything. But I didn't. "I'm looking for work," I said simply. He studied me for a second, then nodded. "We could use someone who actually knows what they're doing," he said. That was it. No drama. No history. Just a clean start. The work felt familiar. Answering phones, scheduling patients, keeping things moving. Only this time it was different. I wasn't helping out. I was hired. Paid. Respected. When I fixed something, it was acknowledged. When I left at the end of the day, it stayed there. That alone felt like something I hadn't had in years. Evan came by one Saturday afternoon. He stood in the doorway for a second, taking in the place. "This is nice," he said. I laughed softly. "It's small," I said. "It's calm," he corrected. That landed. We sat at the kitchen table, same sunlight, same quiet. He told me about school, about a job interview he had lined up, about things that didn't feel heavy. Then after a while he said I saw Dad. I nodded. "How is he?" I asked. Evan shrugged. "Still saying it's not his fault," he said. "Says you overreacted." I let out a small breath. That sounds like him. "He's having trouble keeping things together," Evan added. "A couple of the guys left, said it's too unstable." I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't care, but because I no longer felt responsible. "That's hard," I said. And I meant it. Just not in the way I would have before. Evan watched me for a second. "You okay?" he asked. I thought about that. About everything. The house. The marriage. The business. The moment in the backyard. The drive. The silence. The choice. And I realized something. "I am," I said. And for the first time, it didn't feel like something I was trying to convince myself of. It felt true. The divorce was moving forward. Slow. Paperwork. Meetings. Lawyers going back and forth over details that used to feel like everything. Now they just felt like steps. Greg had tried to reach out a few times. Messages passed through attorneys. A voicemail once late at night that I didn't return. Not out of anger. Just because there was nothing left to say. Tessa, from what I heard, didn't stay. That didn't surprise me. Some things only work when someone else is holding them up. One evening after work, I stopped by a Kroger on my way home. Same one I had been going to for years. I grabbed a few things, milk, bread, coffee. Normal. At the checkout, the cashier smiled. "How's your day going?" she asked. "Good," I said. And again, I meant it. Back home, I set the groceries on the counter and unpacked them slowly. No rush. No background noise. Just the sound of plastic bags crinkling and the hum of the refrigerator. I poured myself another cup of coffee and stood by the window. The sun was starting to go down now, soft light stretching across the pavement outside. I thought about everything. Not in a heavy way. just noticing. For a long time I had believed something without ever saying it out loud, that if I stopped holding everything together, everything would fall apart. And maybe it did, but not in the way I feared. I didn't fall apart. I stood up. Those 5 words I said that night, they weren't clever. They weren't powerful on their own. They were just late. Late to a truth I had been living around for years. I didn't need him to collapse. I didn't need anything dramatic. I just needed to stop kneeling. If you've ever been the one keeping everything running, the one people rely on without noticing, you're not alone. And if there's a moment when you finally decide you've had enough, that moment matters. Thank you for listening.